Hello guys, hope you're doing well. Welcome to my channel, and in this video I am actually going to be talking about TLS, and this is part 2 of TLS topic. So if you have not seen my part 1 video on the same topic, go check it out. Okay, so let's talk about TLS again. To recap a little bit, in the last video I actually introduced asymmetric encryption. So asymmetric encryption is where you have a key pair, basically a private key and a public key. Or one of the ways actually this secure data transfer can happen is basically, let's say you have a client and that client is a browser. On this browser you're trying to actually access a website like gmail.com. So that website is hosted in a web server somewhere in a data center. That web server will basically send this public key to the client, and the client will generate a key called session key, and it will use the public key to encrypt the session key and send it back to the web server. Since the web server has a private key, it will extract the session key out of that. It will basically decrypt that message and it will extract the session key out of it. So at this point, both the client and the server have the session key, and they can now transfer messages with each other in a secure way. Now, the reason why I put a hacker figure over here is, let's say that you have a hacker sniffing on this network, then he will have all this information. Like basically he will have the public key that was sent first, and he will have like an encrypted session key, and all the encrypted data that is being transferred on this network. Hacker basically will have access to all of this information except private key, without which you cannot decrypt any of this encrypted data. So that's how actually we are establishing a secure communication channel. Now in this video actually I want to give you more details, because this is not what exactly happens. So you have a client and you have a server. The client says hi to, let's say, like a Gmail web server, and that web server sends the public key to the client. So this is basically what we talked about in the previous diagram. Now, what is the guarantee that the client actually reached the Gmail web server? What if the hacker over here somehow modified your network and he is actually redirecting all the traffic to his own server, and he could be sending you this public key that he might have generated on his own? Basically you're talking to this hacker's web server, and you're exchanging all this information with his server in that case. So how can you know for sure that you're not talking to a hacker's web server? Let's see actually how a server can prove that it is the right server. It is the actual server that a client wants to talk to. So as soon as you enter a website's address in a browser, in this example browser is the client, we're trying to reach out to this Gmail web server, and the web server will send a certificate instead of only sending the public key information. So let's see actually how we can create a certificate. Using a utility like OpenSSL, you generate a public and private key pair, and using the private key you can actually create what's called a CSR. A CSR is nothing but a certificate signing request, and this certificate signing request is actually sent to a certificate authority, and there are many CAs, actually certificate authorities. For example, Symantec is one, and I just went to this Wikipedia where I can actually see all these popular certificate authorities and their market share and whatnot. So you have these certificate authorities, so you need to actually get your CSR signed by one of these authorities. So now you have a valid certificate, and that is the certificate that is sent to your client. On the client side actually you can just read the certificate and you can get all that information out. So the certificate will have the public key information, it will have the common name of the web server, like in this case Gmail, and if it is known by any other names that can be found in the alternative names section, and particularly you can actually see the issuer name on the certificate. And who is this issuer? The issuer is basically the certificate authority. In your web browser settings, if you navigate to like trusted CAs, you will find basically even the other certificate authorities. The most commonly known certificate authorities are already part of your browser settings actually. So a client actually knows like who is a valid issuer and who is not. For example, if the certificate was signed by a hacker instead of a certificate authority, you can look at the issuer name and you can actually find out that that is not a valid certificate, and hence the browser will, at least it will warn you before communicating with that web server. And if you see right over here, there is a log which actually shows up when this kind of trust is established. So your browser does all this work for you.